The escape pod tumbled through empty space like a dying leaf in winter wind. Inside, Princess Syria of the Draconian Empire lay curled against the cold metal wall. Her scales had lost their shine. Weeks ago, what was once brilliant crimson and gold now looked like old ashes. She could barely remember the color of her own wings. 73 days, that was how long she had been drifting out here in the darkness. 73 days since her brother Rothgar smiled at her and wished her well on her first diplomatic mission. 73 days since a sabotage left her floating in the void with nothing to eat. Dragons needed meat, fresh meat. Lots of it, the kind that still had warmth and blood and life in it. Her people had ruled their corner of the galaxy for thousands of years, and in all that time no dragon had ever learned to survive on processed food or nutrient paste. Their bodies simply refused it. Real food or nothing, that was the dragon way. Right now Syria had nothing. Her stomach had stopped hurting. Around day 40, that was when she knew she was dying. The pain went away. Because her body was giving up, she was too weak to even feel hungry anymore. Sometimes she dreamed of the great hunts back home, of fresh kills brought to the palace tables, of meat so tender it melted on her tongue. Then she would wake up and remember where she was. Alone, forgotten, betrayed. The pod distress beacon still blinked its weak signal into the void, but Syria had stopped believing anyone would find her this far out in the outer rim. Cargo haulers rarely traveled, pirates sometimes, but they would just take whatever they could sell and leave her to finish dying. No one cared about one dragon princess. She closed her eyes and let the darkness come. David Walsh was running late on his supply delivery to New Colony. His daughter Amy sat in the co-pilot seat of their cargo ship, the Wanderer, doing her homework on a data pad. She was 8 years old and took her education seriously, even when her classroom was the cockpit of a beat-up freighter. Dad, what's that sound? Amy looked up from her math problems. David listened. A soft beeping came from the communications panel. Distress beacon. Probably automated. Could be years old. Shouldn't we check? Amy put down her data pad. Sweetheart, we're already behind schedule. The colony needs these supplies, but what if someone needs help? David looked at his daughter. She had her mother's eyes, bright and full of hope. Rebecca would have insisted they check too. She always said, you don't leave people behind, no matter what. All right, let's take a quick look. He changed course toward the beacon. It took 20 minutes to find the source. A small escape pod drifted among the rocks of an asteroid field. Its markings were draconian, imperial design. Expensive. Whoever was inside had money or power or both. Can we dock with it? Amy pressed her face against the viewport. Yeah, but I don't know what we'll find. Stay behind me, okay? David maneuvered the Wanderer close and extended the docking tube. The pod's airlock still had power, which was a good sign. He opened the hatch and climbed inside with Amy right behind him. Despite his instructions, the smell hit him first. Stale air and something else. Sickness, death waiting to happen. Then he saw her. The dragon was huge, even though she was curled up tight. 12 ft of scales and wings and claws. Her breathing was so shallow he almost thought she was already dead. But then her eyes opened just a crack. They were golden, like autumn leaves catching sunlight. Please. The word came out as barely a whisper. Food, any food? Amy gasped. Dad, she's starving. David had never seen a dragon up close. Most humans hadn't. The Draconian Empire kept to itself, proud and ancient and separate from the rest of the galaxy. But right now, this dragon just looked like someone who needed help. "Can you move?" David asked gently. "Not much, too weak." "Okay, I'm going to carry you to my ship. We have food there." "Will not work. Dragons need fresh meat, real meat. Processed food makes us sick." David's heart sank. He only had standard rations on board, freeze-dried protein blocks and nutrient paste, nothing fresh. But he couldn't just leave her here. "We'll figure something out. Come on." He picked her up as carefully as he could. She weighed less than she should have. He could feel her bones through her scales. Amy held the doors open as David carried the Dragon Princess through the docking tube and into the Wanderer's cargo hold. "Let me get you some water first, then we'll try the food we have." Syria drank a little water, then David brought out some of their protein rations. The smell made her stomach turn. She tried to eat anyway, forcing herself to chew and swallow. Her body rejected it. Immediately, she bent over and was sick. In the cargo hold floor, "I am sorry," she whispered. "My body does not recognize this as food." Amy knelt beside her. "What do you need? Tell us and we'll get it. Fresh meat from a real animal, not old, not frozen, not processed." "But I understand this is impossible. You have been very kind to try. At least I will not die alone now." David checked his navigation charts. The nearest Draconian embassy was 3 weeks away. This dragon wouldn't last 3 more days, but the colony of New Haven was only 6 hours. From here, they had farms there, livestock, hunters who went out for game that it would cost him time and money and favors he would have to call in. But he looked at Amy's worried face and thought about what Rebecca would do. "We're going to New Haven," he said. "I know some people there. We'll get you real food, fresh meat. You're not dying today." Syria looked at him with those golden eyes. "Why would you do this for me? You owe me nothing." David thought about that. "Nobody deserves to starve. And my daughter wants to help you." "That's reason enough." Amy took the dragon's clawed hand in her small human one. "You're going to be okay. My dad is really good at fixing things." Syria felt something she had not felt in 73 days. Hope, just a tiny spark of it, but it was there. These humans, these strange small creatures from Earth, were going to try to save her life. Maybe kindness was not dead in the galaxy. After all, David set course for New Haven and pushed the engines as hard as they would go. In the cargo hold, Amy sat with Syria and told her stories to keep her awake. The Dragon Princess listened to the human child's voice and held on to life for just a little longer. She had lost everything to her brother's betrayal, her ship, her mission, her future. But maybe, just maybe, she was about to gain something she had never had before, that a family that chose her, not because of her royal blood, but because she was someone worth saving. New Haven colony spread across a green valley between 2 mountain ranges. 3,000 people lived here, mostly farmers and ranchers who had come to build a simple life far from crowded Earth. The Wanderer touched down on a landing pad at the edge of town just as the local sun was setting. David left Amy with Syria and went to find help. The dragon had slipped into unconsciousness again during the flight. Her breathing was getting weaker. Whatever David was going to do, he needed to do it fast. A doctor, Nina, Ross ran the colony's medical clinic. She was the only xenobiologist within 100 light years, which made her the closest thing to an expert on alien biology David could find. He knocked on her door until she answered, still wearing her sleeping robe. David, what's wrong? Is Amy hurt? No, it's not Amy. I need your help with something unusual. 20 minutes later, Nina stood in the Wanderer's cargo hold staring at the unconscious dragon princess. She ran a medical scanner over Sirius' body and frowned at the readings. How long has she been without food? She said 73 days. That's impossible. Dragons should be dead after 60 days of starvation. Her body is literally shutting down. Look at these enzyme levels. Her digestive system is collapsing. Can you save her? Nina looked up from her scanner. Maybe. If we can get fresh meat into her immediately, and I mean fresh, David. Raw if possible. Her system needs to recognize it as real food or it won't process it at all. How much meat are we talking about for immediate survival? At least 50 lb. To start recovery, full-size cow per day for at least a week, maybe more. Dragons are evolved to hunt megafauna, the big animals. Their metabolism is built for huge quantities of fresh protein. David did the math. His head, the colony's cattle were precious. Each cow could feed a family for months. What Nina was describing would cost more credits than he made in half a year of cargo runs, and he was already struggling to support Amy on his income. I don't have that kind of money, he admitted. Nina put a hand on his shoulder. Then we need to get creative. The colony has hunters, men and women, who go into the forest for game. Maybe you could talk to them. David walked back through the quiet colony streets, thinking about his childhood in Montana. His father had taught him to hunt when he was 12 years old. They would spend days in the mountains tracking deer and elk. His father always said hunting was about respect. You take a life to sustain your own, and you honor that sacrifice by using everything the animal gives you. That he found a hunter's lodge near the north edge of town. A man named Frank was cleaning his rifle on the porch. Frank had lived in New Haven since the colony was founded. He knew every trail in the mountains and every watering hole where the big game gathered. David explained the situation. Frank listened without interrupting, then set down his rifle. You want to trade work for meat? That's a lot of work, David. I know, but I can't let her die. My daughter is sitting with her right now. Amy believes we can save her. I need to prove that kindness isn't wasted in this galaxy. Frank studied David's face for a long moment. Your wife Rebecca was the same way, always helping people even when it cost her. All right, you work for me and the other ranchers will provide what you need, but you better be ready to earn it. Thank you, Frank. I won't let you down. One more thing, I want to teach you proper field dressing again. If you're going to feed a dragon, you need to do it right. These creatures are old and proud. They respect tradition. My grandfather told me dragons have ceremonies around their hunts. You prepare the meat with care, or you insult them. David spent the rest of the night learning. Frank showed him how to dress game in the way dragons preferred. Quick, clean cuts, keeping the meat as fresh as possible. Certain portions prepared certain ways. It was like learning a whole new language, but it made sense. If food was sacred to dragons, then the preparation mattered just as much as the hunt itself. Just Before dawn, David went into the forest. With Frank's rifle, he moved quietly through the trees like his father had taught him. The morning mist hung low. Between the branches, birds were starting to wake up and sing. He found his target near a stream, a bramble elk, the local version of earth deer, but bigger. It weighed at least 200 lb. David took a breath, aimed, and fired. Once the animal dropped instantly. Clean kill with no suffering. David field dressed the elk right there by the stream. He worked carefully, following everything Frank had taught him. Each cut was deliberate, each portion was handled with respect. This animal gave its life so Syria could live. That meant something to him. He brought the meat back to the wanderer and laid it out in the galley. The portions were still warm, fresh as it was possible to get. Then he went to the cargo hold where Amy was still reading stories to the unconscious dragon. Is she going to be okay? Amy asked quietly. I hope so. Sweetheart, I brought food, real food. The smell of fresh blood reached Syria, even through her unconsciousness. Something ancient and instinctive woke up inside her. Her eyes opened, her nostrils flared. For the first time in 73 days, her body recognized food. She crawled slowly to the galley. Every movement hurt, but she forced herself forward. David waited there with the prepared meat laid out on clean surfaces. He had done this right. She could see that even in her weakened state, this human had honored the kill. Eat slowly, David said. Your system is fragile right now. Syria took the first piece of meat and bit down. The taste exploded in her mouth. Rich, warm, real. Her body almost wept with relief. She ate another piece, then another. Not fast, not desperate, but steady and deliberate. With each bite she could feel strength returning, just a little, just enough. The color started coming back to her scales at the edges. Gold began to shimmer faintly in the light. Amy watched with wide eyes. Look, Dad. She's getting prettier. Syria ate until her stomach told her to stop. It was not enough to fill her, but it was enough to start healing. She looked at David with clear eyes. For the first time since they met, you hunted this yourself? Yes, and prepared it in the traditional way a friend taught me. I hope I did it right. Syria felt tears forming. No one outside her species had ever cared enough to learn their ways. This human, this stranger, had gone into the forest and brought back life for her. He had honored her people's traditions without being asked why. She asked, why do all this? David glanced at Amy, then back at Syria. Because my daughter believes in helping people, and because nobody should die alone and starving. It's not right. Your daughter is wise. She gets that from her mother. Syria nodded slowly. She understood loss when she heard it in someone's voice. This human carried grief too. Maybe that was why he understood her pain so well. I am in your debt, David Walsh. By the laws of my people, you have created a bond between us. You're my hunter, now my provider. That is a sacred role. I'm just a dad trying to do the right thing. You are more than that. You have given me hope when I had none. You have shown me that kindness exists beyond my own kind. I will not forget this. David cleaned up the galley while Syria rested. Amy curled up next to the dragon princess, and Syria wrapped one wing around the small human child to keep her warm. For the first time in 73 days, Syria fell asleep without dreaming of death. She dreamed instead of a human who hunted for her, and a child who sat with her in the darkness and the strain. New family that was forming around. Shared meals and simple kindness. 1 week passed on New Haven and Syria grew stronger with each day. David hunted every morning and evening, bringing back fresh game that he prepared with increasing skill. The dragon princess watched him work and taught him the finer points of draconian food culture, which cuts men honor, which meant friendship, which meant family. Amy spent her afternoons with Syria, while David worked off his debt to the colony. The little girl asked endless questions about dragon life, about the empire, about flying through space on ships made of crystal and metal. Syria answered every question with patience, finding joy in the child's curiosity. The colony became used to seeing the dragon princess resting near the wanderer. Some people were nervous at first, but Syria was always polite and careful. She never used her flame near the buildings. She kept her claws retracted around the children who came to stare. Slowly fear turned to acceptance, but not everyone was happy about the arrangement. Garrett arrived on the 8th day. He was a bounty hunter, the kind who asked questions later and collected payment first. His ship was sleek and expensive, covered in weapons and scanning equipment. He landed right in the middle of the colony, square like he owned the place. David was in the forest when it happened. Amy and Syria were alone on the Wanderer. Garrett knew the law. He could not just take the dragon princess without proper cause, so he went to the colonial magistrate, a tough woman named Ruth who ran the local government. He showed her his contract, official draconian empire documentation. Prince Rothgar was offering a bounty of 5 million credits for his sister's return. The charge was treason. Ruth studied the papers carefully. They looked legitimate. The seals were correct. The signatures matched the imperial database. According to draconian law, Rothgar had the right to pursue his sister for crimes against the empire. Where is she? Garrett asked. The landing field. But I want to talk to her first before you take anyone. They walked to the Wanderer together. Amy saw them coming and ran inside to warn Syria. The dragon princess pulled herself to her feet. She was much stronger now, her scales bright. Again her eyes clear, but she was still not at full health. Another week of David's care, and she would be ready for anything. Right now she could barely breathe fire. Ruth climbed into the cargo hold with Garrett behind her. She looked at Syria with a neutral expression. Princess Syria of the Draconian Empire. Yes, this man has a legal bounty contract for your arrest on charges of treason. Do you have anything to say? Syria looked at Garrett and felt old anger rising in her chest. This hunter cared nothing for truth or justice. He only cared about credits. But what could she do? She had no proof of Rothgar's betrayal, no witnesses, no evidence, just her word against official documents. The charges are false. My brother tried to kill me because he saw me as a threat to his power. He sabotaged my ship and left me to die. Equal meta no trason. Can you prove that? Ruth asked. No, my ship is still drifting in space where he abandoned me. The flight recorder would show the sabotage, but I cannot reach it from here. Garrett smiled. Sounds like a convenient story. The law is clear. You're coming with me. Wait, Amy stepped between them. You can't just take her. She's innocent. Kid, this is grown-up business. Move aside. No, Syria is my friend, she's part of our family. Garrett reached for his stun weapon. That was when Syria moved. She positioned herself between the bounty hunter and Amy, her body tense and ready. Despite her weakness, a thin stream of smoke came from her nostrils. You will not touch the child. Are you threatening me? That's assault on a licensed bounty hunter. I can add that to your charges. Ruth held up her hand. Everyone calm down. Garrett put the weapon away. Princess Syria, I need you to step back. Amy, go find your father, but dash now. Child. Amy ran out of the ship. She knew where David was hunting. She ran faster than she had ever run before. Ruth looked at Syria carefully. I believe you're telling the truth, but belief isn't enough. The law says I have to honor valid bounty contracts unless there's evidence of fraud. Do you have any evidence at all? Only my word as a member of the imperial family. That's not going to hold up against your brother's documentation. Syria felt despair creeping back. She had been so close to recovery, so close to finding a path forward, and now it was all falling apart. She would be dragged back to the Empire and executed as a traitor. David and Amy would be left wondering what happened to her. Then David burst into the cargo hold with Amy right behind him. He was breathing hard from running. His hands still had blood on them from field dressing his morning hunt. What's going on here? Ruth explained the situation. David listened, his face getting darker with each word. When she finished, he turned to Garrett. How much is the bounty? 5 million credits. Why? You planning to pay it off? Garrett laughed. No, I'm planning to buy time to prove she's innocent. Ruth looked interested. What do you have in mind? New Haven is a coalition colony, right? That means you have the authority to grant temporary sanctuary while evidence is gathered. I've read the colonial charter. It's in Section 7. Garrett smile disappeared. That's meant for political refugees, not wanted criminals. She's a political refugee. Her own brother tried to murder her for political reasons. That fits the definition exactly. Ruth pulled up the colonial charter on her data pad and read through Section 7. Her eyebrows went up. He's right. I can grant 30 days of sanctuary while an investigation is conducted. But Garrett, you need to leave the colony during that time. No harassment of the princess. This is ridiculous. I have legal documentation, and I have legal authority on this colony. You have your answer. Come back in 30 days. Garrett pointed at David. This isn't over. When I come back, I'm taking the dragon, and if you interfere, I'll have you arrested too. He stormed out of the ship. A few minutes later, his vessel lifted off and disappeared into the sky. Syria looked at David with amazement. You saved me again. How did you know about that law? I didn't. I was guessing, but I used to work in the asteroid belts doing mining contracts. You learn to read the fine print when your life depends on it. Ruth smiled. Well, it was a good guess. You have 30 days. I suggest you use them wisely. Find that flight recorder if you can. Get proof of the sabotage. Otherwise, I'll have to honor the bounty next time. Garrett shows up. After Ruth left, the three of them sat together in the cargo hold. Syria felt shaken. She had come so close to losing everything again. Amy hugged her neck. We won't let them take you. Right, Dad? Right, we're going to find that ship and get the proof. But first we need a plan. Syria shook her head. David, you have done enough. This is too dangerous if you help me. Further, you risk everything, your ship, your livelihood, Amy's future. Stop. David looked her in the eyes. Your family now. I don't care what some legal document says. You protected my daughter from that bounty hunter. Even though you're still weak, you could have surrendered to avoid trouble, but you put yourself between Amy and danger. That means something among my people. That is what family does. Same with humans, so we're doing this together. Amy grinned. All for one and one for all. That's from a book I read. Syria felt warmth spreading through her chest. Not from fire, but from something else. Something she had never experienced in the cold political world of the imperial court. These humans had chosen her, not because she was a princess, not because of what she could do for them, but because they cared about her as a person. Thank you, she whispered, both of you. I do not deserve such loyalty. Everyone deserves someone in their corner, David said. Now let's figure out how to find your ship and clear your name. We got 30 days. He started making plans while Amy brought Syria her evening meal. David had prepared it perfectly as always. Fresh, warm, full of life. As Syria ate, she listened to David and Amy discuss routes and fuel calculations and supplies they would need. Her brother Rothgar had tried to destroy her. He had taken everything she had and thrown her away like trash, but in losing everything she had found something better. She found a family who fought for her not because they had to, but because they wanted to, and that was worth more than any throne could ever be. The Wanderer left New Haven on the 28th day of sanctuary. David had used the time well, trading his services to the colony for ship upgrades and supplies. The hunters had given them preserved game for Syria. Dr. Nina Ross had provided medical equipment. The whole community had pitched in to help. Moved by Amy's faith and David's determination, now they were heading back into deep space, chasing coordinates to place Syria. Barely remembered her old ship would still be drifting there, a ghost in the void, holding the evidence that could save her life. Amy sat in the co-pilot seat, studying star charts that Syria had taught her to read. The Dragon Princess was curled in the cargo hold, stronger now but still recovering. David was at the controls, pushing the Wanderer through a region of space that honest people avoided. Dad, are we really going to find it? Amy asked quietly. I hope so. Sweetheart, what if Garrett finds us first? David did not have a good answer for that. The bounty hunter would be tracking them. 5 million credits was enough motivation to follow them anywhere, and Garrett had a faster ship with better weapons. If it came to a fight, the Wanderer would lose. We'll be careful, he said finally, and we have something Garrett doesn't. What's that? We're fighting for someone we love. That makes us dangerous. The first week of travel passed without incident. They stopped at small outposts to refuel. David hunted on planets with breathable atmospheres, keeping Syria fed and healthy. Each night the three of them ate together in the galley. It had become their ritual, a family dinner. Among the stars, Syria taught Amy more of the Draconian language. She told stories of her home world, of cities that floated above ruby-red plains, of hunts that lasted for days across vast territories. Amy listened with wide eyes and asked questions that made Syria think about her culture in new ways. Why do dragons only eat fresh meat? Amy asked one evening. It is how we evolved. Our ancestors hunted the great beasts of our world, animals larger than your houses. Our bodies adapted to process massive amounts of fresh protein. Over millions of years we lost the ability to digest anything else. But that seems hard. What if you can't find fresh food? Then we die. It is a weakness in some ways. We are dependent on the hunt, but it is also what makes us strong. Every meal is earned. Every kill is honored. We do not take life lightly. David spoke up from where he was cleaning their evening dishes. Humans used to be the same way. We hunted for thousands of years before we learned farming. My dad used to say that hunting teaches respect. You look an animal in the eye and you understand what it means to take a life. Your father was wise, Syria said. He taught me that providing food for your family is one of the most important things you can do. It's not just about filling stomachs. It's about showing you care enough to do the hard work. Syria looked at David with new understanding. This was why he was so good at preparing her meals. He did not see it as a chore. He saw it as an act of love. Every hunt, every careful cut of meat, every portion served was him saying that she mattered. On the 10th day, their sensors picked up a ship following them. David checked the signature. It was Garrett, and he had brought friends. 4 other vessels flew in formation behind him. Mercenaries, probably hired guns who did not care about right or wrong, only about getting paid. They found us, David said calmly. Syria came to the cockpit. You should leave me at the nearest station. I will not let you die for me. Not happening. We're almost there. Another 4 days to your ship's coordinates. We can make it. David, look at their weapons. We cannot fight 5 ships, then we won't fight. We'll run. He changed course toward an asteroid field, the kind of dense rock cluster that made navigation dangerous. The Wanderer was built for rough work. It could take hits that would crack open a sleeker vessel. David had spent years hauling cargo through the asteroid belts. Near Earth, he knew how to fly through debris. Garrett's voice came over the communications channel. Give up the dragon and I'll let you go. This is your last chance. Go jump in a black hole. David replied and cut the transmission. Then he pushed the Wanderer into the asteroid field at full speed. Rocks tumbled past the viewports like deadly snowflakes. Syria gripped her seat with claws that could cut through metal. Amy held on tight and trusted her father to get them through. David flew like he was born to it. He threaded through gaps that looked too small. He used the ship's maneuvering thrusters to spin around obstacles at the last second. Behind them, Garrett's ships followed. But they were having trouble. One of the mercenary vessels clipped a rock and had to fall back with damaged engines. Chase went on for 2 hours. David's hands never stopped moving on the controls. His eyes tracked multiple trajectories, at once calculating paths through the chaos. This was what Earth had taught humanity: how to survive in impossible places, how to adapt and overcome. Another mercenary ship got too confident and took a direct hit from spinning boulder. Its shields collapsed and it limped away from the fight. Now there were only 3 ships chasing them. David saw his chance. A narrow canyon ran through one of the larger asteroids, barely wide enough for the Wanderer. He dove into it without hesitation. Walls blurred past on both sides, so close that Amy could see the texture of the rock. Garrett tried to follow, but His ship was bigger, it scraped against the canyon walls and had to pull back. David emerged on the other side of the asteroid and immediately jumped to faster than light speed. They had escaped in the cargo hold. Syria released the breath she had been holding. That was incredible flying. That was terrifying, Amy corrected, but also really cool, Dad. David allowed himself a small smile. We bought ourselves some time. Gary will regroup and track us again, but we have a few days head start now. You risked your life to protect me, Syria said softly. Again, your family, that's what family does. 3 days later they reached the coordinates. Syria's old ship floated in the darkness exactly where Rothgar had left it. The diplomatic cruiser was beautiful even in death. Draconian design was all curves and elegance, built to impress as much as to travel. David suited up for a spacewalk. Syria wanted to come, but her environmental suit had been destroyed. She would have to wait on the Wanderer while David retrieved the flight recorder. Be careful, she told him. The ship may be unstable. I will. Amy, you monitor the sensors. If any ships approach, you warn me immediately. Got it, Dad. David crossed the empty space between the two vessels. The diplomatic cruiser's airlock still had emergency power. He cycled through and entered the dead ship. The interior was haunting. Everything was preserved exactly as it had been when the ship died. Coffee cups still sat on tables in the mess hall. Personal items floated in zero gravity. This had been Syria's home, and Rothgar had destroyed it without mercy. David made his way to the bridge. The flight recorder was in a reinforced compartment behind the pilot station. He pulled it free and was about to leave when Amy's voice crackled in his helmet. Dad, 3 ships just dropped out of hyperspace. It's Garrett. David cursed and ran for the airlock, but he was too slow. Garrett's ship positioned itself between the Wanderer and the diplomatic cruiser, cutting off his escape route. Garrett's voice came over the radio. Game over, Walsh. Hand over the recorder. And the Dragon, do it now or I'll start shooting your daughter's ship. David looked at the flight recorder in his hands. This small device held the proof of Syria's innocence, but if Garrett destroyed the Wanderer, Amy would die. There was no choice. Don't shoot, I'm coming out. He crossed back to the Wanderer slowly. Garrett's mercenaries were already boarding the ship. David could hear Amy crying over the radio as they took Syria into custody, but David was not done fighting yet. He had the flight recorder hidden in his suit. Garrett might have captured Syria, but David still had the evidence, and he was going to find a way to use it, even if it meant going up against the entire Draconian Empire alone. Garrett's mercenaries locked Syria in a containment cell on their ship. Heavy chains wrapped around her wings and legs. She could barely move, and the metal was cold against her scales. Through the wall she could hear Amy crying in another cell. David was somewhere else on the ship, probably being questioned. Syria closed her eyes and felt the familiar weight of despair. She had been so close to freedom, so close to proving her innocence. Now Rothgar would get what he wanted. She would be dragged back to the Empire and executed as a traitor. David and Amy would be released, but they would carry the guilt of her death for the rest of their lives. She had brought them nothing but trouble. Hours passed. Then the cell door opened and Garrett stepped inside. He looked pleased with himself. Comfortable, Princess. Where are David and Amy? Safe for now. I don't hurt Kids and the man hasn't done anything. Except be stupid, they'll be dropped at the nearest station when I collect my bounty. Let me see them, please. No, you. Just try something noble and get everyone killed. Here's what's going to happen. We're taking you to Crossroads Station where your brothers' representatives are waiting. They'll verify your identity and transfer the credits, then you're their problem. Garrick, listen to me. My brother tried to murder me. The flight recorder proves it. David found it on my ship. I don't care. Politics are above my pay grade. I catch bounties, I get paid, I move on. Whatever happens after that is not my concern. He left and locked the door behind him. Syria slumped against the wall. She had no moves left, no plans, no hope, but she had forgotten about human stubbornness. David sat in his own cell working on the lock with a piece of wire he had hidden in his boot. He had learned lock picking during his mining days. Asteroid stations had cheap locks, and workers who sometimes got locked out of their own quarters. It was a useful skill. The lock clicked open after 20 minutes of careful work. David slipped into the corridor and moved quietly toward where he had heard Amy's voice earlier. He found her cell and picked that lock too. Amy threw her arms around him. Dad, I thought they were going to kill us. SHH. Be quiet, we're getting out of here and we're taking Syria with us. How? I still have the flight recorder and I have a plan, but I need you to be very brave. Can you do that? Amy nodded. David found Syria's cell 2 doors down. She looked up in shock when he opened the door. David, how did you escape? Misspent youth. Can you fly in those chains? No. They're too heavy. Then we'll have to take them off. Hold still. David examined the locks on the chains. They were electronic, which meant he could not pick them. But he had noticed something during the spacewalk earlier. The containment cells used a different power system than the rest of the ship. If he could trigger an overload, it might disrupt the locks that he found a power junction and started crossing wires. City of Achille nervously. Amy kept watch at the door. Sparks flew from a junction box. Then all the lights went out. That eye in the darkness. The electronic locks on Syria's chains clicked open. The metal fell away and she stretched her wings for the first time in days. Now what? She asked. Now we get to the Wanderer and get out of here before they fix the power. They ran through the dark corridors. Emergency lighting flickered on, giving them just enough visibility to navigate. Behind them, David could hear Garrett shouting orders. The mercenaries were scrambling to restore power and find the escape prisoners. They reached the docking bay where the Wanderer was held. 2 guards stood by the door, but Syria took care of them. She was fully healed now and angry. A burst of flame sent them running for cover. David sealed the door behind them and ran for his ship. Amy was already climbing into the co-pilot's seat. Syria squeezed into the cargo hold. David fired up the engines without waiting for clearance. Garrett too. Wanderer, stand down immediately or I will open fire. David did not respond. He punched the engines to full power and ripped free from the docking clamps. Garrett's ship was not designed for fast launch. By the time they got their weapons online, the Wanderer was already accelerating away. But they were not safe yet. Garrett's allies were still out there, and they knew where David was heading. Crossroads Station was the nearest place to get help. The coalition embassy there could provide protection if David could prove Syria's innocence. The race was on. David flew like a demon, squeezing every bit of speed from the old cargo hauler. Behind them, 3 ships gave chase. Syria came to the cockpit and looked at the sensor display. They will catch us. Before we reach the station, I know I'm going to broadcast the flight recorder. Data on all emergency channels, even if they catch us, the truth will be out. There, Rothger will claim the data is fake maybe, but it's a start. People will ask questions, investigate. You'll at least have a chance. Syria put her clawed hand on David's shoulder. You have given me far more than a chance. You have given me hope and family, and a reason to keep fighting. Whatever happens, I want you to know that we're not done fighting yet. David activated the emergency broadcast and started transmitting the flight recorder data. Every ship in range would receive it. Every station, every relay, every monitoring post, the information would spread across the galaxy faster than Rothger could contain it. The data showed everything, the sabotage too. Syria's ship, the disabled life support, the emergency pods that had been rigged to fail, and most damning of all, it showed Rothger's personal access codes being used to override the safety systems. Syria snorts watched the data streaming out and felt tears on her face. Her brother's treachery was now public knowledge. He could not hide anymore. Then Garrett's voice came over the radio, and he sounded different, uncertain. Walsh, I just saw the data. Is that real? Every word. Rothger tried to murder his sister. That changes things. I don't work for murderers. I have standards. Since when? Since I saw that a princess was left to starve in an escape pod by her own blood. That's not politics, that's evil. I'm breaking off pursuit. One by one, the other mercenary ships did the same. They had signed up to catch a traitor, not to help cover up attempted murder. Honor among thieves was still honor. David allowed himself to breathe. They had a clear path to Crossroads Station now. The truth was spreading, and Syria had a real chance at justice. 4 hours later, the Wanderer docked at Crossroads Station. Coalition security was waiting for them, along with diplomats and news reporters. Flight recorder data had caused a sensation. Everyone wanted to hear Syria's story. Ambassador Park, the human diplomat in charge of the station, met them at the airlock. She looked at David and Amy with respect. You've started quite a situation, Mr. Walsh. The Draconian Empire is demanding we ignore the data and return Princess Syria immediately, but the Coalition Council is demanding an investigation. What happens now? David asked. Now we prove that the data is authentic. If we can verify it came from the original ship, Rothger will face charges. Syria will be cleared, but we need time, and the Empire is putting a lot of pressure on us. Syria stepped forward. I will cooperate fully with any investigation. I only ask that David and Amy be protected. They risked everything to help me. They're heroes. Ambassador Park said simply. The whole galaxy is watching what they did. A single father and his daughter standing up to an empire for what's right. That kind of story inspires people. She smiled at Amy, especially the part where an 8-year-old girl insisted on saving a dragon princess. That's all over the news feeds. Amy blushed. I just wanted to help, and you did. You all did. Now let's finish what you started. The investigation took 3 weeks. Scientists verified the flight recorder data. Experts confirmed it had not been tampered with. Witnesses came forward with information about Rothger's political ambitions. The evidence piled up until even the Empire could not deny it. Rothger was recalled to the home world to face trial. The charges against Syria were dropped, and the Emperor himself sent a formal apology along with an invitation for Syria to return home. With full honors restored, Syria stood in her temporary quarters on Crossroads Station and looked at the formal invitation from her father. The Emperor wanted her to come home. Her name was cleared, her position was restored. Everything she had lost was being handed back to her, but returning to the Empire meant leaving David and Amy behind. She had spent the last 3 weeks living near them on the station. David still hunted for her when he could, though station regulations made it difficult. Mostly he prepared meals from imported meat, and it was never quite as good as the fresh kills from New Haven, but he tried, and that was what mattered. Amy had been attending the station school, making friends with alien children from a dozen different species. She was teaching them human games and learning their customs. In return, Syria often joined these play sessions, enjoying the simple joy of watching younglings be happy. They had become a family in the truest sense, not bound by blood or species, but by choice and love and shared struggles. Now Syria had to choose: return to her royal life or stay with the humans who had saved her. David found her staring out the viewport at the stars. He carried 2 cups of hot tea, a human tradition he had introduced her to. Dragons did not normally drink hot beverages, but Syria had learned to appreciate the ritual of sitting together and talking. Thinking about home, he asked. Thinking about what home means. I grew up in the imperial palace, but I was never happy there. Too much politics, too many people who wanted things from me. I was a chess piece, not a person. And now I'm just Syria, not a princess, not a political tool, just someone who eats meals with people who care about her. It is strange how much better that feels. David sat beside her. You know, Amy, and I will support whatever you decide. If you want to go back, we understand. Do you want me to go back? I want you to be happy. If that means being a princess again, then yes. If it means staying here and figuring out new life, then yes. To that too. Syria sipped her tea. What would you do if you were me? David thought about it carefully. I think I would ask myself what good I could do. You have the chance to influence an entire empire now. You could change our dragons, see other species. You could build bridges that have never existed before. That's important work, but I would be alone again. Would you? The Emperor invited you to bring guests, as many as you want. Syria looked at him sharply. You would come with me to the draconian homeworld if you wanted us to. Amy loves learning about different cultures, and I've gotten pretty good at preparing dragon food. I bet I could learn even more from the imperial hunters. David, you would be giving up your freedom, your ship, your independence. I'd be choosing a new adventure with people I care about. That's not giving up anything. That's gaining something better. Amy burst into the room at that moment, excited about something she had learned at school. She stopped when she saw their serious faces. What's wrong? Is Syria leaving? Syria opened her arms and Amy ran into them. The small human child fit perfectly against the dragon's chest, like they were designed to be together. I am thinking about going home, Syria admitted, back to the Empire. but I do not want to leave you and your father behind. Then don't, we'll come with you. It's not that simple, little one. The empire is very different from human worlds. The politics are dangerous. You would be far from everything you know. Amy looked up at her with absolute certainty. You're my family. Stick together, that's what Dad always says. David smiled. She's right, we're a package deal now. Where one of us goes, we all go. Cygnus felt her heart swelling. In draconian culture there was a ceremony for this. When someone was formally adopted into a clan, they shared a hunt and a feast. The ritual bound them together as tightly as blood. Then we should do this properly. I wish to adopt you both in a clan vault. It is a formal process with witnesses and vows. Are you willing? What does it mean? Amy asked. It means you become part of my family in the eyes of dragon law. You would be nobles of the empire with all the rights and protections that brings, but more than that, it means we're bound together. Your enemies are my enemies. Your joys are my joys. We face everything as one. David looked at Amy. What do you think? Sweetheart, I think Cygnus has been part of our family since Dad cooked her that first meal. We might as well make it official. The ceremony was held 2 days later. Ambassador Park arranged for it to be broadcast across the galaxy. Billions of beings watched as Princess Cygnus of the Draconian Empire formally adopted a human cargo hauler and his 8-year-old daughter into her clan. Cygnus spoke the ancient words in her native tongue. David and Amy repeated them as best they could. Then came the feast. David had hunted for 3 days on a nearby habitable moon, bringing back the finest game he could find. He prepared it in full draconian ceremonial style, with every cut and portion following traditions thousands of years old. They ate together while the galaxy watched. Dragon Princess, a human father and a child who believed in helping people. 3 beings who should never have met, now bound together as family. The Emperor himself sent a message of congratulations. He also confirmed that David would be granted the title of Royal Hunter, the first non-dragon to ever hold the position. Amy would be enrolled in the Imperial Academy as a student of diplomacy. 3 months later, the Wanderer approached the Draconian homeworld. Syria sat in the cockpit with David and Amy watching her home planet grow larger in the viewport. The world was beautiful. Ruby-red plains stretched between crystal mountains. Cities floated on anti-gravity platforms, catching the light of twin suns. Nervous? David asked, terrified. Syria admitted, I have not been home in almost a year. Everything will be different now. You're different now. Stronger. You have people in your corner. They landed at the Imperial spaceport to a formal reception. The Emperor waited with his full court. Thousands of dragons watched as Syria descended from the Wanderer with her human family beside her. Her father embraced her tears in his ancient eyes. He whispered that he was proud of her strength, proud of her choices. Then he turned to David and Amy. You saved my daughter's life. You gave her hope when she had none. The Empire owes you a debt that can never be repaid. David bowed respectfully. We just did what anyone should do. Nobody deserves to starve alone. The Emperor smiled. Perhaps, but very few beings would actually do it. You crossed the galaxy to prove her innocence. You risked everything for someone you barely knew. That is the definition of heroism. Amy tugged on the emperor's robe. He looked down at the tiny human child with surprise. Yes, young one, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you have any good hunting grounds? My dad needs to practice. He wants to learn more about dragon cooking traditions. The entire court laughed. The emperor patted Amy's head gently with one massive claw. We have the finest hunting preserves in the galaxy. Your father will have access to all of them. I am curious to see what a human can do with our traditional recipes. Life in the imperial palace was strange at first. David and Amy had quarters next to Sirius in the royal wing. David spent his days learning from the imperial hunters, mastering techniques that had been perfected over millennia. Amy attended classes with young dragons, teaching them about human culture while learning about theirs, and every evening the three of them ate together. Sometimes it was just them. Sometimes the emperor joined them. Sometimes other nobles came to witness the unusual family and their shared meals. Syria took her place on the diplomatic council and began pushing for closer ties with human worlds. She argued that humans had qualities dragons needed to learn: compassion across species lines, stubborn determination in the face of impossible odds, the ability to see people as individuals rather than categories. Some dragons disagreed, but they could not argue with the example sitting right in front of them, a human who had saved a princess when he had every reason to ignore her distress. Call a child who insisted on kindness when the adults around her had given up. Slowly things began to change. Trade agreements were signed with human colonies. Cultural exchange programs started. Dragons began to see humans not as weak creatures from a dangerous world, but as potential allies and friends, and at the center of it all was a family that should never have existed. A dragon princess, a human single father and his daughter, proof that the most powerful force in the galaxy was not weapons or money or ancient bloodlines, that it was the simple act of cooking a meal for someone who was starving and choosing to care when you had every reason to walk away. But on the one-year anniversary first meeting, David prepared a special feast. He had become legendary in the imperial kitchens for his fusion cooking, blending human and dragon traditions into something new and beautiful. The emperor declared a holiday, the day of found families. Syria, David, and Amy sat in the palace gardens under the light of twin moons. They ate and talked and laughed. They remembered the escape pod drifting in darkness, the first hunt on New Haven, the desperate race across the galaxy, all the moments that had brought them here. Do you ever regret it? Syria asked David, answering my distress call. David looked at his daughter, happy and thriving in a world of dragons. He looked at Syria, healthy and strong and using her position to make the galaxy better. He thought about his simple life as a cargo hauler and how empty it had been. Not for a second. You gave us purpose, a family bigger than ourselves, a chance to make a real difference. I was the one who was saved. We all save each other, Amy said wisely. That's what families do. They raised their cups in a toast to found families, to second chances, to the kindness of strangers who became the most important people in your life. And somewhere in the imperial kitchens, young dragon chefs were learning to hunt and prepare food the way David had taught them, with respect, with care, with the understanding that every meal was a gift and every person who sat at your table was someone worth fighting for. The galaxy watched and learned, and slowly, one meal at a time, the universe became a kinder place.